Should we start? All right. Okay, welcome everyone. Thank you for coming. My name is Alex Schaefer, and I work with the Secretary of State's office, and this is Jim Drake. He's actually the Deputy Secretary of State, and I think Governor Jambroo is out of state right now, so he's the acting secretary. All right, let's just jump right into it, though. So we're here to talk about the 2014 ballot measures that are going to be appearing on the general election ballot. All right. So the election day takes place on Tuesday, November 4th of this year, so it's a little less than a month away. And early voting has actually begun, so ballots have been starting to mail out. If you are going to be voting in person, you can vote at a poll, any polling location, or at your polling location, and you would find it by using our website. We have the link right there. Or you could give our office a call or your local elections office, and we can show you it. But all polling locations should be open from 6 in the morning to 7 at night, too, so it's a nice window for you. All right, and in the publicity pamphlet, it's got, we'll go over what's inside the entire thing. Everyone should have received one in the mail. They've been mailed out to every registered voter in the state. If not, though, we have some here as well, so you can grab them. But it has the official title and text of each measure, so we have 3 statewide ones. And there's also the legislative analysis, which is done by Leg Council, and that's basically like an overview of what the bill will do. Normally there's a fiscal impact statement included, and this year around there's actually not one for any of the 3 because normally those are created for measures that have been referred by the people, and these have all been referred by the actual legislature. But 304 does actually deal with money, and we'll talk about that too, and we've calculated some numbers for you. Also in the pamphlet are arguments for and against each measure. Well, whether they were submitted by the public or not, and then also is a ballot format too. So that's the actual language that will be on the ballot, and in that is the yes/no language that was approved by the Attorney General. And also noteworthy is we have several formats of the pamphlet if you need. We have large print, Spanish, English, and there's also an online version. And you can find the online version on our website right there at www.azsos.gov. Okay, a little bit of housekeeping. We try to remain very neutral when explaining the propositions. We won't take a side for or against a measure, and our goal is to explain what each proposition does in a very neutral manner. Timekeeping wise, we've invited proponents and opponents of the measures to this town hall meeting, so they're welcome to speak. And we won't, depending on time, we won't enforce too strictly the time limits. But normally we have proponents and opponents give about 2 minutes if they want to discuss, and public comment can be made as well. Normally that's around 1 minute, but we'll go from there. And all right, let's go to the next slide. In the pamphlet, you'll notice is a proposition guide. So it basically tells you what the numbers that start each one mean. And we'll go over them here too as well. So if your proposition starts with a 100, it means that it was an amendment to the Arizona Constitution. A 200 labeled prop would be an amendment to Arizona statutes proposed by a citizens initiative. So it's a little strange that this year that we actually don't have any. In the past, we tend to have a few. So there weren't any that were submitted this time around. If it starts with a 300, it means it's an amendment to Arizona statutes proposed by the legislature. So we have 2 of those this time. One was referred by the legislature, and the other one's actually the Commission for Elective Salaries for State Officers. And then 400s, you'll notice there's not any 400 labeled props in the publicity pamphlet from our office, because this is just statewide measures. 400 means it's a local city or county ballot measure. So those would be, a lot of time your local city or town will send out another pamphlet, and they'll have all the local matters in it too. Okay, so the first proposition is Prop 122, and the reference title is the rejection of unconstitutional federal actions. And it permits the state to exercise its sovereign authority by restricting state and local government personnel and financial resources to purposes that are consistent with the Constitution of the United States. And so to give a little background, I think we actually have one of the proponents for the bill here, if you'd like to speak.
You want to just come to the podium?
This is Mr. Noble.
And if you have any questions, just say, I mean, it's town hall. You don't have to wait till the end.
All right. Thank you, folks, for having me here. It's great to see you guys again, twice in one day. My name is Mike Noble. I'm here in support of Proposition 122. Basically, to sum up 122 is that it is a way where, for us as Arizona, to bring more of the state's rights back to us and less power towards the federal government. So, for example, let's say the federal government, in their infinite wisdom over in Washington, D.C., would like to pass something that we don't agree with or we find unconstitutional with Arizona's law. Should we, as Arizonans, have to pay for that? And also, are all the laws they're passing a one-size-fits-all? I would say no. I think the problems we have here in Arizona are different from Maryland, Texas, Oregon, and Alaska, right? Hence why with Proposition 122, it's for us to kind of bring that power a little bit back to the state, for us to protect ourselves and also be able to, if there's issues, for example, if things we don't agree with or we don't think is to our values or our benefit, we can go ahead and either pass it through the legislator or do a referendum or put it on the ballot to leave it up to the voters or for Arizona to decide what's best for us and not Washington, D.C. So, and you're going to see a lot of these signs around, yes on Prop 122, and also please go to our website, just yesprop122.com, and there's a ton of more information on there. Also, any question you can think about of some of the legalities of this and some more information, we have just about all those questions answered on there. So, and of course, I'll be here afterwards if you have any questions for me, okay? So thank you for having me, though.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right, thank you, Mr. Noble. Okay, and then I wanted to mention too that this proposition would actually be adding on to our Constitution, and it's the section that it speaks about the Supremacy Clause. So right now, in our Constitution, it mirrors the U.S. Constitution, stating that the federal law is the supreme law of the land. This wouldn't replace that or anything, but it would add on to that section. So, and it's kind of a good point to make that this wouldn't automatically change anything. This would kind of open a doorway for something to take place to challenge it. And Jim can probably speak a little bit better about that than I can.
In some of the other town halls, there's been questions, what immediate effect does this have? And it doesn't have any effect right off the bat. It puts out a framework that then would allow for the second step, where either the legislature or the people of Arizona through the initiative process or through some sort of a judicial, legal challenge, could challenge one of the federal acts. But this puts the framework in place. A second component would have to happen to actually exercise this authority.
And that second component that Jim was talking about, we'll talk about a little bit too in the yes-no language, which we're about to get into. All right. So now we'll go over the yes-no language that was approved by the Attorney General. So if you vote yes on Proposition 122, it would have the effect of allowing the state to restrict the state and all local governments from using any personnel or financial resources to enforce, administer, or cooperate with a federal action or program that is not consistent with the Constitution of the United States. The yes language goes on to state that it would also have the effect of allowing the state's authority to be exercised if the state passes an initiative, a referendum, a bill, or pursues any other available legal remedy. So that's kind of what Jim was mentioning. So this would open the door if Arizona were to deem something that the United States were telling us to do as unconstitutional, we could pass an initiative, a referendum, or any other available legal remedy. And I know that might be, what's the word I'm thinking of? Litigation. But yeah, that would open the door for something to happen like that, to stop that. All right, so now we'll go into the no language. So if you were to vote no on Proposition 122, it would have the effect of retaining the current law relating to the state and local governments in the Constitution of the United States. And that current law is the Supremacy Clause that I was talking about a little bit. All right, so that's pretty much, yeah.
So now, are other states, do they have similar propositions? Do other states have similar propositions going right now?
Absolutely. And correct me if I'm wrong, I believe 35 states have similar propositions, if not identical propositions they passed, which has basically helped bring back more of the power towards the states compared to the federal government. So if we were to pass this, we would be in the majority of the other states.
And would this put us in a step closer to it just slipped my mind.
Not a problem, we can come back. We'll be
Yeah.
here all night, so.
Convention of States, it came to me. Will this put us a step closer to a Convention of States?
I'll refer that one to him.
No, that's a separate question. To come together and ratify a change to the federal constitution is a separate issue from this. This simply would allow the people, through the initiative process, the state legislature, through two ideas, either the referendum, where they could send it to the voters to decide, or passing a bill on their own, or through legal challenge, you could challenge a federal act. I think it is safe to say that if this does pass and it's enacted and into law, there will be litigation to follow. I think that's,
Right, but you don't think it would like set the mood to I guess, bring more of the leaders of our state more in line with the Convention of States? You think it's too separate?
I think it's a separate question.
All right, thank you. Any other questions for Prop 122? Comments, maybe? All right, we're going to move on to the next one. So the second proposition statewide would be Proposition 303, and the reference title is the use of investigational drugs, biological products, or devices. And it would allow a manufacturer to make available to an eligible terminally ill patient a drug, biological product, or device that has successfully completed phase 1 of a clinical trial but has not been approved for general use by the United States Food and Drug Administration. So, as it stated, this would be applying to eligible terminally ill patients, and right now, to receive a drug, it would have to have been passed by the entire process of the United States Food and Drug Administration. Well, if this were to go through, it would only have to go through the first phase.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
I'm just checking here. All right, so that would,
If I, all right, so, so if I had cancer and there were experimental drugs and I was very interested in using them, you're saying that now I could make the decision to use those drugs? Or it'd be easier for me to get in the door to be able to use those drugs?
Yes, perhaps.
Okay.
There are 5 elements that you would have to meet to become a legal, eligible, terminally ill patient. It's in the pamphlet, and there are 5 prongs that you would have to meet. The proposal you have before you is manufacturer-centric. This speaks to the manufacturers. It and also the doctors who are regulated by Arizona. This would allow the manufacturer to make these available. But it's permissive. It's not mandatory. It's permissive. And then you could perhaps get in the queue and you could request those drugs.
So is it going to make it easier then for a sick individual or terminally ill to receive those drugs?
That is the intent, yes. The proponents here tonight, have a story about that
Okay.
I know they're going to share.
Okay.
I didn't want to foreshadow.
All right, folks, so this is one of the propositions that gets me most excited. I've been, working in this political stuff for a while, but this is one thing that, it really touched the heart when I heard the story, and I was like, whatever you need, let me know. I would love to be on board. So basically, Proposition 303 is about, it's about giving folks hope that are terminally ill. And if you have a loved one that has a very serious disease, and currently, at the FDA process, it takes roughly about 15 years to get a drug through the system, also about $1 billion. Okay? Well, if you have a month, 6 months, 2 years to live, can you wait that long? I mean, if you have no other options, I think you should have something that's past stage 1, which what Proposition 303 would allow, past stage 1, which is for human trials. You should be able to do it. And I'll give you a case in point of why, which kind of brought Proposition 303 to the forehead and where we're at now. And that is a case about a young man named Diego, who lives in Phoenix, and his family. And basically, Diego fell down, he hurt himself, and they took him to the doctor, and they say, hey, I got some bad news for you. And they're like, what is it? They go, oh, he has one of the most rare forms of spinal cancer one can get. family's devastated. I mean, how do you do that with your 10-year-old child, correct? And so they first go to a hospital in Tennessee, they get information, can't get any help. There's nothing to treat it. And then they go down to Israel, or go over to Israel, talk to doctors over there. What can we do? Can't help you. They went down to Mexico, talked to some folks, and then finally they found a doctor saying, hey, if I were you in this position, I would recommend this particular drug. But this particular drug, even though it's manufactured in the United States, they cannot get it in the United States. It's approved, however, in the European Union, but it's not approved over here. And so they had to, and luckily these folks were a family of means, and they were able to pick up, they had family in London, lived in England for a year. How many folks could pick up, move their family, live there for a year, pay for all the medical bills, and not be able to work during that time? Not many. And that's what kind of brought this entire thing of Prop 303. And Diego, now back in America, after his year of treatment, well, he, as of a month ago, he actually threw the first pitch out at his first Little League game. So this is what really has fired us up about 303, is to give folks hope, and that's what we're proposing. And it doesn't matter if you're Republican, Democrat, Independent. This is an issue that I think is pretty obvious. It's something that everyone can get behind. And like I said, we will literally be saving lives, and that's why I hope you folks land up supporting Proposition 303.
There's no one here from the opposition. Are there any questions?
With the recent Ebola stuff going on, would that
Good question.
help get drugs quicker?
Correct. You know, it's funny you brought that up. So I usually come up with two stories, well, typically Diego, and the second story is not the recent Ebola issue, but a month ago there was two workers, doctors that were down in Africa. They were coming back. They ended up finding out they had Ebola. Well, they were able to catch it quick. They gave them experimental drugs. They wouldn't tell us which ones yet. They gave them experimental drugs. Well, both of them are still alive. What was it in the news just recently? I think I saw in the news one of the gentlemen that got Ebola just recently, he just passed away like today or yesterday, which, a few days? And these other folks are not only, they're improving. And that's why I think that definitely has helped, put more light on it. And also with this, 3 states, and as of yesterday, Michigan just adopted, 4 states now have passed this all through their legislators and have made Proposition 303 part of their law. And so Arizona, though, we're the first state that's going to put it up to the voters is what we want to do. And so, but right now, I think our polling is currently right in the mid-70s, which is phenomenal on a political issue. Usually a political issue, if you're in high 50s, you're ecstatic. So, but yeah, we'd be, and it's queued up to be on about 13 or 14 different states ballots in the next coming years. So it's something that's gaining a lot of traction and, is very popular, so.
There is no opposition. Are there any other questions?
All right, cool. And we actually haven't done the yes language yet, so we'll go over that too real quick.
Oh,
Yeah.
the other states are Colorado, Louisiana, Missouri, and now Michigan. Missouri?
Okay, so a yes vote, if you were to vote yes on Prop 303, it would have the effect of allowing a manufacturer to make available an investigational drug, biological product, or device to an eligible terminally ill patient. It would exempt a physician from regulatory action based solely on the physician's recommendation of the drug, product, or device to the eligible terminally ill patient. It would also have the effect of classifying as a Class 1 misdemeanor any attempt by a state official, employee, or agent to block access of the investigational drug, biological product, or device to an eligible patient. Okay, and now we'll do the no language. Oh, yeah, sure.
Why is it only for the terminally ill?
Well, I know in the bill,
I mean, how do you, for instance, when I had ovarian cancer, it's a 90% chance you're going to die, and the doctor could not give me or get me on a list to be on an experimental drug. And praise God, I'm still here. But I don't know that they would have labeled me terminally ill at that point. So,
and I know.
Why only terminally ill?
I'm not quite sure why it's just terminally ill. I know that's the language of the bill. I can read you the definition for what an eligible patient is, but Jim might have a little bit to add too.
Keep going, I gotta find it, I gotta find it, so you stall.
Sure.
I'll find it.
I'll read the definition for what an eligible patient is, and then we'll go from there. So to be an eligible terminally ill patient, you have to meet 5 different criteria. You'd have to have a terminal illness as determined by a physician. Number 2, the person's physician has determined that there is no other approved treatment option and that the risk of the drug, biological product, or device is not greater than the risk of the disease or condition. 3, the person has received a prescription or a recommendation from the physician. 4, the person has received written informed consent of the use for the investigational drug, biological product, or device. And 5, the person has documentation from that physician that they meet these criteria.
That's the language they chose. However, in the findings and intent, which is also part of the language and will be on the on your ballot and be voted on. This is part of the act. It does say that it is the intent of the legislature that by allowing for terminal patients' right to try act apply to patients with non-terminal illnesses furthers the purpose of this act also. So it seems like they've started with the terminal folks first and then opened the door for further legislative action on that to maybe expand it to the non-terminal area sometime in the future.
All right, that was a great question. Does anyone have any other questions or comments? Okay, so let's do the no language. So if you were to vote no on Prop 303, it would have the effect of retaining the current law regarding the availability of investigational drugs, products, or devices that have not been approved for general use by the United States Food and Drug Administration. So right now, as we said earlier, it would have to go through all the phases through the FDA before you could receive that drug. Before we move on to Prop 304, were there any last comments, questions, anything? Okay, so let's go to 304. So Prop 304 is a recommendation as to legislative salaries. It would provide an increase in the salaries of state legislators from $24,000 a year, which is what it is currently, to $35,000 per year. And this recommendation is made by the Commission on Salaries for Elective State Officers. So then the yes language, if you vote yes on this prop, it would have the effect of raising their salaries to $35,000 per year. Pretty straightforward. And then if you vote no on this bill, it would have the effect of keeping state legislators' salaries at $24,000 per year. And another point to mention too, there is 90 legislators in Arizona, so this would be raising the salaries of 90 different individuals. There's 30 in the Senate and 60 in the House. And I know too that the pure salary increase would be $990,000, and then the actual with benefits, it'd be around $1,300,000, so $1,300,000. Yeah. Do you want to? You're good at that.
Oh, I'm sorry. I wondered if it was a part-time position or a full-time job.
Depends on who you ask. The legislature meets in session from the first part of January for about 100 days. So end of April, that's what is normal and routine and was also expected. I will tell you, though, that the business of the state doesn't end when the session closes. And there's an awful lot of work that's done in the interim. And in 2008, I believe, there were 9 special sessions where the legislature was called back into session because of some crisis. Yes, it is a part-time job, but there's also a great deal of work that happens in that 8 to 7, 8 month period when they're not there. It's been at 24,000 since the question was, so we can get it on the television.
How long has the salary been at $24,000?
What an outstanding question. It is. It was changed in 1998 and became effective in January of 1999. Before it went to 24, it was at 15. And the reason they're proposing this time around to go from 24 to 35 is that if you take an inflation factor from 1998 and apply that inflation factor, you get up right around the $35,000 level. Other questions? Go ahead.
No, I
Okay.
would sound stingy.
All right. And I think also worth mentioning too is the last time that this was on the ballot was in 2008. So it's been off for a while. And then I think the one thing that we might not have talked about is per diem too. So this would apply to how much they get covered, how much legislators are covered for travel and subsistence expenses as well. So for like travel and food and stuff like that. If this were to pass, they would get, within the first 120 days of legislative session, they get $35 per day, and they get an additional $25 per day if they live outside of Maricopa County. So there's a lot of legislators like from Tucson or just other parts of the state, and if they come in, they get a little bit, that bump.
But that per diem is current law. That won't change. It's only the actual pay.
Oh, yeah. I probably didn't state that very clearly. Sorry. Thank you for covering me, Jim. Yeah, that's part of what they're covered for currently, but I just wanted to make sure everyone knew that. So,
I can't remember, do they get lifetime benefits also after they
Yeah.
finish?
I know that there is a legislative retirement.
They
And
are
what is that?
also eligible for the elected officials' retirement plan, which is much like Arizona State Retirement System too. While they're there, they're paying into that, and they're eligible through a point system to get some of that back when they get out. One of the
But we would be paying into that also, right? The
Yeah,
citizens?
it's a state expense, yes, state obligation.
Do you know what the, is it that till death is, and how much would that be? Do you have an idea?
I don't. One of the questions that came up from Flagstaff was how many terms a legislator would have to serve until they were eligible for that EOR benefit, and I don't have that, but we have already taken 2 phone numbers, and we're going to call people back. So if you'd like to leave us your name and number, we'll do that.
Thank you.
Great questions. All right, that's pretty much it for the 3 props. Does anyone have anything else to add or any comments? All right, I want to thank you guys all for coming.
Just on the,
Oh, yeah, sure.
I missed the first one, was it the 321?
There's 122, 303, and 304. Did you miss one of them?
The first one is the rejection
We can't hear you.
Which one did you want to talk about? 122 is a constitutional amendment concerning states' rights. 303 is right to try. 304 is salaries.
I'm thinking here. What's the one I see, what is it, 326, you see it?
327. What's the subject matter?
Save the town of Chino Valley?
Oh.
The green one?
Thankfully, that's a local matter,
Okay,
and
so that's not you guys.
it's not us. I would love
Okay.
to help you on that one.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much for braving the hailstorm, the driving rain. It's beautiful up here, but thank you for coming by. And if you have any other questions, just call our office.
Thank you for
Thank you.
coming, Chino, appreciate it.
Thank you all.
So we're going to close.